Hi everyone, welcome back. This is Deborah and today I'm going to be doing another quilt and I want to make it into a brick pattern. Now I don't really have a pattern, so I'm just going to make it up myself, but I thought that if I did 8-inch strips, then just keep that going, and then on the next row if I start with a 4-inch strip and then do 8-inch strips after that, and at the end I would then have a 4-inch strip because it's not going to be the same length, and then the next row I do an 8-inch strip. So you get the idea that I'm going to have this brick pattern all over, or at least I'm hoping that's how it works out. Now I'm not sure how many strips across I'm going to do, but possibly I'm going to make it, let's see, 8/8 would be 64. That's probably a little too big. So if I come back to 7/8, which is 56 inches, that sounds like it might be a good one across. Now each of my jelly roll strips is usually around the 42-inch mark, but I probably am going to only cut them to the 40 because I've got to account for the selvage. So if I say that I get 40 inches out of each strip and I've got 42 strips, I think I should have enough when I come down the quilt with the number of rows that I'll have to make it a fairly decent sort of size quilt. I got the calculator out so I can work it out and you can follow along with me. Hopefully it'll be correct. So if I've got 40 inches of fabric and I've got 42 strips, so let's just go 40 by 42, that means I've got 1,680 inches of fabric. If I want to make each strip 56 inches long and I divide 56 into that, it should tell me that I'm going to have 30 rows. Now, so 30 rows, don't forget that each row is 2 inches wide once you've finished sewing a 1/4 inch strip on either side of the jelly roll. So that means I'm going to have a quilt that is roughly square. It's going to be 56 by 60 in length. So I think that that's pretty good. So that's why I'm making up my own pattern for this one. The fabric I'm using is this one, Flower Garden. It's a 2.5 inch jelly roll strip and it's made by Lindsay Cole McRae for Moda, as I always like to use a Moda fabric. And here it is here. So you can see it's really pretty colours in this one. And it's got a number of lights as well. If we go back here in the light section, we've got a number of lights. I'm going to start by cutting each strip down. Now I probably cut some 4 inches and others in the 8-inch. So I'll just line this up and cut my selvage off to start with and then turn it around. And then I want to cut my 8-inch pieces. 8. And then when I get to the fold, I can either cut some 4 inches out of this, or I can unfold it like that and cut an 8-inch out of it. I won't have enough 4-inch left, but I may have enough for a 2.5 inch square. Not quite, but never mind, that's fine. My end's a bit wobbly there. I know a lot of people don't use this one here where it's folded, but for this project I'm going to use it. In fact, I usually use it. I don't see the point in not using it. So they're my 8 inches, and I'm just going to go through and cut the jelly roll up into those now. And as I do that, I will occasionally cut some at the 4-inch mark. I also might stack some up and cut them, because I think this will be quite forgiving in a way to do that. I think this is going to be a fairly quick quilt because it's just bars, and not only that, because I'm offsetting them, so I'll show you this with a little 4-inch strip, because I'm going to offset them like this, there's not going to be any match points between each of row, so it should come together fairly quickly as I go through it. Of course, you can iron your fabric, you can starch your fabric, it's your fabric, you can do whatever you like with it. I don't particularly iron my fabric very much, and I never starch my fabric. I know a lot of people who do, but you know, as I've said before, it's not my style. You know, I'm a bit messy and it tends to come together anyway, whether I think you've starched it or not. I'm not putting these in a quilt competition. They're just for me and my family, and nobody in my family quilts, so they all think that they're great because they don't know how to sew. But I'm sure if anybody else looked at them, they'd probably say, yeah, that's not great, but they're okay. I'm thinking I might actually do a quilt trunk show for you, so you can see some of the other quilts that I've made, and you'll see that once they're all together, you don't really notice some of the issues, perhaps, you know, the things that aren't quite on point or whatever, because they're just on the lounge or on the bed, or they're in the van, wherever they are, they're just, you know, being used or sat on or whatever. So therefore I don't get too worried about that. I'd rather get them done and have them in use or give them away, whatever I'm going to do with that particular quilt. That's just how I feel. Now I'm going to cut some down into 4" just so I can get started and show you how this quilt will come together. I have chain pieced some of mine together to start off with. So you can see here I've chain pieced some of the 4" pieces to the 8" piece, and I've also chain pieced a couple of the 8" together. That just makes it quicker to go through and chain piece that. But don't chain piece all of these together, because you need 1 extra at the end. So you'll use 3 of these, so that'll be 6, and then you'll have 1 extra loose one at the end that you'll need to join on, so that you make your 7 bars across. And then also the thing that I've done when I've chain pieced is I've done light, dark, and even with these ones, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. And I have got a variety of colours in this quilt. So there is this grey, there's quite a good bluey navy colour, lots of that gorgeous citrine or acid green that I love so much, and then I also have this sort of teal colour. So there's quite a variety of fabrics in this quilt. I have done the first row. It has got 7 across, 2, 4, 6, and 1 more is 7, and that comes out around the 52.5 inches. So you have to account for the 1/2 inch that you lose on each seam, and that's fine as far as I'm concerned. That seems like a decent size in terms of a lap quilt. So that is my first row, and then the second row you're going to start with the opposite. So for a start, you'll start, if that's the dark, you'll start with the light, and then you'll also start with the 4" piece. Continuing along, you'll have another 4" piece on the other end so that it matches end to end. So I'm going to go away and just do that now and come back and show you. So here are my first 2 rows. Let's turn them up the way that I actually intended them to be, which is this way. Now you can see here I've got 2 matching. If you wanted to, you could just check that before you go through. I didn't bother. By the time the whole quilt comes together, it will be fine. There you go, all the way to the end with the 4" on the end again, and on each end actually. And then with the next one, you would just then start again. So we've started with a light, because that's a dark, so I'd start with this as my dark and just sew along there. Now there is one thing I will tell you that I did, is I found the center point of this one. So of the both of them actually, but of course this one's easy because the center point's on a join, but this one is not. You can divide this up further if you like. You can find your quarters and line those up. It depends on you and what you want to do. I've just found this one. I'll just grab my pin. Here's my pin, and I will just pop that in there for a moment. And then the center point of this one will be one of the short ones and 3 of the large ones. So the center point's going to be here. So when I put these 2 together, I will make sure that that center point is on there, because then I know that I've got equal amounts of fabric on either side to match up. Because sometimes it's quite easy if you're pull on it too much to actually stretch one or the other out. Usually the top one you might stretch it out, so I would just pin those together, and then I would go and sew the rest of that, knowing that I've got my center point. If I can get that pin in there, I've got my center point in here, so I know that that's going to be the center of this strip, and the rest of it's going to fit along there, and vice versa. I think this quilt's going to come together very quickly because it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple to cut and there's no seams to match. So I think that I should have it done quite quickly. I probably won't use that one because I've got a match there. So I'll find another strip or sew another strip. But if you do it in the strip piecing method and do each step and then complete each step rather than what I've done here, you'll find it'll be super, super quick. And I will share the results with you on my Instagram account, which is the same as my YouTube channel, String and Scissors, and the link is down below in the section in the description below, as well as the measurements that I've used to make this quilt. So I hope you go there and have a look at it once it's done, and I will see you next time. Thank you very much for watching. This is Deborah. Cheers.